Hey everybody, I'm Nico, and you guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Nico Action. That's NICOACTION.
And I'm Tori Sheehan. You can find me on Twitter at Tori_Sheehan and at Instagram at SMTori. That's Tori with an I. And you can find all of us at the Billy Club Pod on all your socials.
Well, and that is of course because we are here on the Billy Club to celebrate all things Daredevil's story, and I could not be more excited than to celebrate everybody's favorite Crimson Crusader swinging his way through the Marvel Universe. We are at one of my all-time favorite characters. I am so excited to finally be here. Daredevil 18 and 19. It's a good time, Tori.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is. I mean, but who is the Crimson Crusader?
I mean, he is Daredevil, the one and only. He is Matt Murdock. He is
he?
Foggy Nelson?
But one thing's for sure, he's definitely fighting the Gladiator.
And, then the Masked Marauder, I can't say that word really well.
Marauder.
Marauder, the Masked Marauder.
Marauder.
Yeah, Daredevil versus the Masked Marauder and the Gladiator. It should all kind of rhyme.
Yeah.
I so completely love this character, and one of the things that's really interesting is Stan Lee, John Romita, Frank Jacoa, right? I never want to be cruel and get a name wrong. And Sammy Rosen, they create a character who truly isn't the character he's going to be for decades yet. It's going to take years to really reach the character he's going to become. It's not that these creators undercreated the character, because I think in a lot of ways he is really of the time. He's very Vincent Price in the 60s, like a TV budget Vincent Price.
Yes. I couldn't really tell what they were going for with his face, but it was definitely
they're going for hotness.
Definitely like kind of exotic, creepy, bulky guy, nightmare man.
And when you say exotic, I love that it's actually that kind of iffy word, because he could kind of be Latin, he could kind of be Italian, he could kind of be Eastern European. There's just sort of all of the features in his face without having too many features in particular.
Yeah.
And I love him. He's so hot. And he's got the right kind of build and the right kind of face. I call him Gladiator. I love him so much.
I mean, he's so built that Daredevil is on the cover clutching at those pecs. Like, how could you not?
Now, I know we talked about it last episode for a minute. I'm going to talk about it again this episode for a minute. The cover does not quite match the interiors. The costume is all sorts of wrong. I'm not mad about it. I definitely noticed that it happened. And so I just need to be like, this is something where I've often wondered why. And, I guess part of it is there would be no limit to the corrections, but I would go back and fix stuff, I think.
I think for me, what it really is that the color scheme on the cover is very blues and grays and greens, and then like that red Daredevil just really pops. And so I think by making the Gladiator more green instead of the reverse, which is his blue, I think it helps to give him just a little more pop against all the foggy ness of the docks.
Well, and I think that's a really good point, especially with Gladiator himself is such a weird idea. He's such an over-the-top pastiche, and his costume is really no particular era. I don't think that he is, at this point, really realized as a person, but as a silly villain, as Foggy comes to this guy to design him a Daredevil costume so he can have kind of a lark and I
Get
guess
Karen to marry him?
by cosplaying Daredevil, look, I love me a thick boy, but she has been held by Daredevil, and she knows Daredevil is not a thick boy. Cosplay you a thick boy, like Beast. That's, but like that there's something so silly about his gambit that I wonder if the design of it, she'll see I'm not Daredevil, but won't notice I'm not Daredevil. I wonder if this was designed so that even a child reading it would be like, no. And then they point to it so many times.
I think that's part of it. There's a large part of me that thinks that like if this wasn't the 60s and if they were allowed to like fuck around before they got married, that like he could literally just be like, all right, I'll put on the suit for, a little bedtime fun action, because that's what this is for.
That's what this feels like it would be now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the things that I loved the most about this issue is, right around page, I want to say it's 10 or 9 or so, we get Gladiator getting dressed. We get him legitimately like half naked, and a lot of internal thought and a lot of like there's something about this character that it's not just that he is like beefy daddy. Yeah, seriously, impure thoughts. Oh my god, he's so beautiful.
Just gonna
But right, I'm getting I love him so much, and I think part of what I love about him is he's not visually like other Daredevil bad guys. I feel like a lot of Daredevil bad guys are silly in a non-threatening way. They're the owl, they're the matador, we also get, Ox, but I feel like Ox isn't a Daredevil villain. Ox is like general.
Yeah, I think this is definitely something where you feel this is, I guess, the first one who really pulls a lot of weapons in his suit against Daredevil. And I think that is a new tactic, because for a while there, we were getting a lot of gadgets out of Daredevil. And it's shocking against a supervillain who has so much stuff that we actually don't get any gadgets out of Daredevil in these issues.
And because we share notes, because we are a production team with Kevo, our incredible producer, running the amazing soundboard and the visuals, putting this all together, we have an opportunity to look at each other's notes for those of us that are responsible enough to type out our notes in advance instead of putting them in a bunch of handwritten stuff. But so I've seen Tori's notes, and one of the things that I love that Tori referenced in her notes is Foggy is too gee whiz to be from Hell's Kitchen.
He is so gee whiz.
How is he the Beeve?
He is. He's in like he is in a Scooby-Doo cartoon.
Yeah,
and none of it is, and everything else is happening on like a horror, like creepy B movie set. And I just like, for me, I don't think it's I don't think we have the specific background of where Foggy comes from in this series yet. I know they sort of retcon him to be from Hell's Kitchen and that he's known Matt since they were little and sort of whatever. But like, if I didn't know that, I would think that Foggy came from like the Upper East Side. That
for sure.
Or he's
for
like
sure.
a Connecticut boy. Because that's what he feels like in all of this. He feels like a Connecticut boy playing in Daredevil's court.
Yeah. And, it's so exaggerated here. And I love how many references Foggy is like, man, I wish I were built like Matt.
And I'm just like, how often, Nico, you're a gentleman with many gentleman friends. How often do you say to yourself, oh, I wish how often do you think about the build of your friends?
The gay ones, or?
Well, yeah, I know it's difficult when you're attracted to them.
No, but I know what you mean. There is like, if it's like a gym buddy, if it's like, a guy I lift with regularly, or somebody that I wind up in situations where it's not unusual, like My boyfriend is in like contracting, so like if his roommate is ever around and that's not weird, I'd be like, oh yes, he has a good build, I am familiar with it, we have worked on things in tight little tank tops.
Right.
uh
But when
if
you're
you're
in
asked,
big business suits all the time,
yeah, and that's even something that like I wonder about. Like, is that meant to indicate to us that like Foggy's like, oh, I have to help Matt get dressed? I don't know. Like they were roommates in college at one point, but were we at the era of men sharing each other's strength yet? I mean,
I don't think so. And I also think that it's like we get a lot of body shaming in this one,
yeah,
right? And we get a lot of internalized fat phobia kind of also from Foggy.
for
Um,
sure.
and it's just like really a shame because he doesn't, the first time he puts on that Daredevil suit, he doesn't look like particularly like he's particularly busting at the seams or something. It's difficult to
Agreed.
talk about this body shaming and this fat phobia without being body shaming and fat phobic. I noticed that as the issue goes along and as Kevo was showing us this, that they take their time to like show us him in weird positions that accentuate it, but he looks good. Like he looks fine.
Yeah.
And
I mean, he looks like there's a number of, I'll go with like thick boy kind of superheroes in the last couple of years, and he's really in line with Egg of the X-Men. He's in line with some of the, and I say this with a lot of, let's go with the word love, but there's some real chunky depictions of the Beast that I am very about, and he's in line with those.
Yeah. Like there's I mean, no one is saying that Wong in the Doctor Strange movies is like unfit to be a hero.
I famously think he's one of the most beautiful men
Right?
in like
He's
all of movies.
stunning.
I think Benedict Wong is like literally one of the hottest men in the Marvel Cinematic Universe by seriously a Sidorak mile.
Right.
It is
And him
nuts.
and the guy from Eternals who like I watch the behind the scenes and he's like, guys who look like me don't get to wear these outfits. Like it's a shame that this is happening in the 60s because I really do think that like I've said before, Foggy is a catch. And like I don't know why he's so obsessed with a girl who's chasing danger, except for the fact that she never looks better when she's screaming. Like the way she's drawn in this issue is beyond.
Well, and I think that's even part of the magical damage of working with these characters in these iterations. We need a reason Foggy's not his own man, because Foggy is as beholden to Matt as we expect Matt to be to Foggy. And, I think, without sounding like, kind of the funny alpha toxic stuff, but like, there is nothing wrong with being kind of like a beta simp personality and finding your alpha dominant personality that you want to be part of, whose life you want to share. No shame in not being the more dominant person. And because we're at an era where that is still equated with Hemingway levels of impotence, I think we are, ironically, that you're doing that. Ironic.
Sorry, I took a moment. I was like, I should
funny.
I need to tone it down to just oh goodness.
I mean, look, if Santiago is going to keep pissing off the side of that boat, you can have as many issues with phallic representations of manhood interacting with the notion of impotence as you want. The fucking Marlin should have died earlier. It's a short book, and the Marlin should have died sooner. Anyway,
welcome to Literature Corner.
Yeah, welcome to the old man and the Daredevil seafood salad plate. Just keep going.
But also, like, maybe if I will admit, if I was Foggy and I came over to visit Matt and he was wearing that smoking jacket look that looks so amazing on page 4, like, I think I too would be like, I can't.
I'm gay for my friend.
I'm gay for my friend. It's doing a number on my head. I need to fuck the girl he's in love with as some sort of like courtly romance idea of like how you approach your love for another man, and like get there. And like, Matt looks really good in that smoking jacket. Sorry, not sorry.
And I love the smoking jacket from the end of this two-parter. But hold on, we need to take a minute. Please let Matthew, for the rest of his life, always wear tiny little shorts, this tiny. And oh wait, he does. This is how gay Matt looks from now till the end of time.
Yeah, he's just forever looking like this. And also, I was a little intrigued by the fact that Matt's like, oh, I gotta get back into my body. I gotta turn off these thoughts. And instead of being like, let me put on the red pajamas and go swinging around and check out the crime, he's like, I'm gonna go work out tonight. Like, were we not expecting superheroes to be like a 24/7, like a 12 out of 7 every night kind of on call kind of thing yet?
I think the idea was at one point that, you know, the New York City, right, is a place that people seem to think you can sort of just stick Lego versions of the buildings on sort of a playmat and just kind of put minifigs all around it, and that's New York in the 1960s. There's like 16 buildings and 24 people, and they all know Peter Parker. And I think that's what we're looking at here. We're looking at a world where they think there's only so much crime. Oh, I think they think the police are doing things.
Oh, they're like, my devil sense isn't tingling, so I can take the night off. Because like we also just got off a couple of episodes where they're like, we haven't seen Daredevil around in a while, so like let's dress up a bunch of people as him. Like, I'm fascinated that Matt's like taking a nap lately.
Well, and you know, I think part of what makes Matt's life so silly is they really don't understand how to balance like Matt life with Daredevil life yet, such that the building manager being such a huge part of this story, like it's Three's Company or something.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that because I have a lot to say about a man who wears $100 suit, another man who goes on a cruise, and a gal who always looks gorgeous in her fur-lined coat, having to worry about rent in the city.
When you're drawing your clothes, you can put yourself in Fenty all the time.
Well, speaking of our fabulous trio, we're getting a lot more actually of the romance on this one because it is the driving point of the plot. Like the plot is Foggy puts on the Daredevil suit to impress the gal, and it goes horribly wrong. So we get a lot of Karen and Foggy are standing too close, and Matt is listening at the door like some creepy peeper dude. And Karen's like, "Oh, I always worry when you're gone for so long." And then Foggy has to ruin everything by like dropping a million hints that he's Daredevil. And it's just weird.
Foggy is about as subtle as making fish in the microwave. And it is, you know, on the same subject as not subtle, there's something that like, I feel like the first 12 issues of Artists were like, oh, Daredevil should be a little bit serious. It's the serious book. And then John Romita comes in and is like, how big can I make the radar? And it adds like a silliness to it.
It does.
That the book needs.
It needs it so bad. It needs so that bad. Humor. It needs that fun. I mean, Sammy Rosen, as Kevo's pointing out, is bringing the batok to us all. Like the lettering on these fights is so much fun. The colors are still so fun. Like we gotta start matching the artwork with our with our plot lines here. And so
I agree.
I don't know. I'm still dazzled by the fact that Matt is wearing a white coat after Labor Day. Like, what is he even doing?
Fabulous white coat. Number one, fabulous white coat.
Yes.
Number two, I kind of want to make it interesting. We're in an era where everybody treats Matt as quote unquote the dumb blind man. You know what I mean?
Yes.
He's not like a real person. He's blind. So that while we know that is a disgusting way to treat anybody,
Mm-hmm.
Matt is treated that way. So that means they're letting him walk around in a white coat after Labor Day. And that's its own kind of fucked up.
I know so many guys who are just colorblind whose girlfriends dress them all the time because they don't trust them to figure it out. So like maybe this is what Karen's super into fashion and she's like, I can fix this for him if he just lets me marry him.
Now, can I ask you a really interesting question about your interpretation of Karen's agency? I I I can't
Karen is a Hitchcock blonde in this. She's a Hitchcock blonde.
okay. That yeah, because it's as if she has I don't know. It's like they're saying to Karen, "Look, Karen, all of the pieces." And she goes, "Uh-huh." And they're like, "When you put the pieces together, they make a puzzle." And Karen goes, "Uh-huh." And they go, "Karen, would you like to make the puzzle from the pieces?" And she goes, "Uh-huh. But but what if I pick that piece first? But then there's that piece." She's like paralyzed by options that she shouldn't have.
Yes, Karen is. I don't know what the difficulty with Karen is that Karen is written by men and by men who are not exactly Casanovas, if I had to guess. And so she is the epitome of mother, whore, secretary, maid. She is everything you could possibly need from a female character, a girl, the girl you got to save, the daughter you have to protect, all of these things. And in the middle of it all is her occasionally saying, actually like making a decision.
She looks so good here, though. Oh my
Like
god!
I said, this is the best she gets drawn.
Fuck.
When she is terrified, it's like John Romita's just like, yes, this is how
Yes.
women deserve to look. Now I'm not
Women
saying
look
that
so
in a weird
beautiful,
way.
afraid.
I know, but like honestly, like you're beautiful when you cry, you're beautiful when you're screaming and running in the dark. Like for me, I think Karen is definitely like taking all of the 60s stereotypes, shoving them into one girl, and then saying it's perfect. And the men are both crazy about her. And it just doesn't make sense from a modern point of view. You can like kind of decorate it by saying like, oh, she's a product of her times, and oh, she's doing the best that she can, and she's sort of playing both to get what she wants. But at the end of the day, like, could she be just like a bag of cash? Maybe.
Could you replace her with an early edition BlackBerry?
Like, is she a poster on the wall of Pamela Anderson? IDK. So I'm still unimpressed with Karen, but I got to give it up for her survival skills. Yes, she is a sexy lamp. She's a very sexy lamp. But I got to give it up for her survival skills. She's like, there's a part of me that wants to believe that Karen doesn't think Foggy's actually Daredevil, that she like sees through it, but she's playing along because it's like interesting, and Matt's not interesting right now. But like,
it's something to do.
It's something to do. Her cable's out, like whatever. But like she from the beginning is like, no, we should go. She's not like, oh, if you change into Daredevil, you can save us. Like she's like, no, we got to cut and run, honey. And she is like, she runs. She's like, I got to get to Matt. Matt will know what to do. Foggy got his butt kicked and he's Daredevil and he's the only guy I trust with that secret identity. She faints on command to get out of a rent check.
I was going to say your notes on that are the best part of the entire thing. I too faint when people ask me for rent.
Like, I too. I'm just like, oh no, it's so much money. Oh no. But yeah, like when we're talking about rent, like Matt took this enormous cruise to go meet Kazar. Foggy's wandering around in $100 suits, which are apparently $850 suits in today's money, which is not like crazy.
That's not a Kohl's suit,
but like it is
it's Brooks
definitely
Brothers.
Yeah, it's Brooks Brothers at minimum. Yeah, this is not you're gonna like the way you look. I guarantee it.
I guarantee it.
But like, I mean, I'm hoping that was like a gift from when he was running for the DA. Like, we got to get you in better suits. But like, Jesus fucking Christ, like they're always like, we don't have any money, and I'm like, well, quit spending money on cruises then. You own this place.
And that's one of the things that I think comics just don't have down yet. And I don't know that they have them down in modern times quite right either, but like in the 60s, there really was a lot of difficulty understanding how to properly navigate this situation. You definitely had Xavier being like, I'm going to rebuild the mansion. And then being like, I can't afford anything, Warren dollars, Warren. And then Warren was literally like, not if Wolverine's on the team. And Xavier was like, then we don't want your money. He sells books. Goodbye.
Hang on. Charles can't like mind control people. He can just mind read people and move stuff around, right?
So Charles Xavier is the worst creature in existence. Charles Xavier is the most mind controlly piece of shit on the planet.
So then why doesn't he mind control a bunch of construction workers? I'm not saying that it's moral. I'm just saying that it gets the job done.
Because Charles Xavier is much more interested in playing the nice guy. So the difference between Charles Xavier and Purple Man is Purple Man believes that you ply your trade in the open. And if you're just honest with people, it's just what it is.
Right.
And Xavier believes that if you ply your trade in the shadows, people will like you because your race should always feel inferior and make itself fit in and assimilate. Recently, though, in the pages of Krakoan X-Men, he's a little bit more like, I'm not interested in assimilation. We're going to take over the island of Krakoa and the planet of Mars, which is now the planet of Rocco. And it's our own planet, and it's just mutants. And yeah, so that the image that had been up on the screen, X's for Podcast, is of course the show that this is the partner show to, where we talk about Xavier and his many goddamn machinations all the time. Really big fans of talking about how Xavier is truly a jerk. But back to Daredevil, which similar yellow, but red instead of the blue.
Slightly. So first off, apparently the cops are in the exact same like Andy Griffith show lifestyle that Foggy comes from, because they are also like, oh, there's something weird going on in the docks today. Let me go.
They are Benny Hill people.
They really are. But then when Foggy puts on the mask and the suit, first off, it's super creepy to see eyeballs in the mask. I didn't realize that until it happened. And two, like, he gets corny lines, and then Matt is like, oh my God, I hope I don't sound corny like Foggy. And then he judges himself for the rest of this series, of this arc.
One of the things that we talk a lot about is how creators like to show the characters and how we can understand them through reflections. And we talk about how Spider-Man is meant to create a reflection. We talk about how anybody who has alternate senses is meant to create a reflection. And Gladiator nor Masked Marauder in issue 19 represent a reflection of Daredevil or of Matt. So instead, we get the reflection of Matt and Daredevil both through Foggy, because that's really the literary irony, the dramatic irony that we're dealing with here, that Matt knows Foggy is Daredevil and that Daredevil is Foggy. But Foggy nor Foggy Daredevil have any idea who Matt or real Daredevil is.
Right.
really, because that's the actual thing. It's not just that, oh my God, Daredevil is my friend Matt. Matt is Daredevil, and that is two different kinds of betrayal for this group of people, ultimately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really enjoy that because I feel like figuring out the double identity of Matt is super central to like these early issues, and I feel like Foggy is the way that we show how Matt should be. Like if he was fully, if he wasn't blind and he was also a lawyer, he'd probably be almost exactly like Foggy. And
Well, I also just want to add fully formed, but like Matt can't talk about his feelings in a way that other men of the time, a la Foggy, comment is dead inside. So,
yeah,
like, Matt is incomplete in a lot of ways as an underlying trait that they use his blindness as a catch all to represent. So, I understand how you see layers of Matt is incomplete, even
right.
at this point.
And I mean they haven't blamed Catholicism yet because I don't think we actually know if he's Catholic yet.
Not
And
yet.
so we can't like add those layers in yet, but you do see why people would be like, "Hey, he's got a lot of guilt. He's either Jewish or Catholic. Which is he?" And so they went with
Right now, he's
Catholic.
just a DASP, a
He's just
devil Anglo-Saxon Protestant.
could have been a rasp. He's, I guess, he's red. He's not white. He's red. He's a red suited man. So yeah. So I think the ending of 18 going into 19 is a strange thing because the Matt talks to the doctor about Karen. We don't see Karen. Or no, he doesn't even talk to the doctor. He talks to the building manager about Karen and the doctor, neither of whom are there. And then the building manager looks at the guy whose name is on the door and he goes, "I'm going to talk to your partner about money tomorrow." And I'm just like, this is such a weird place to end this and move on.
Well, and the art is one of those situations where if you told me that this was a situation that Stan Lee took a bunch of someone else's art and just moved it all around however he wanted to build out these pages, I'd believe it. These panels feel very much like they're so coda. And, when widescreen comics became the sort of rebuilding of the narrative, when we sort of surrendered the idea of the structure of the funny book and we reinterpreted it to be, a reimagining a la film in a really big way, right?
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
We started using film techniques like, scenes have very clear delineations and we don't cut between things anymore. Comics, you would never have two panels of one scene on one page like this, smushed in to a line of panels that then say later on in the second of three panels in a line. So visually, this is just clunky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's so many words. It's so many words.
It's nearly unreadable.
It's
Like,
nearly
just
unreadable. You can't understand what's going on. Like you have like there's a lot of in Daredevil there's a lot of showing you something and then telling you something. We see that a lot with Foggy in the Gladiator's shop where we see the guy come out and then Foggy's like, "Oh, I can't believe he looks like that." And so I really feel like this whole thing is just like talking about something that we're already seeing in a visual medium.
yeah, for sure. And speaking of like visual medium, there's something about a comic that has the ability to look very different issue to issue, even when it's the same creative team. Just like a random example of this for me, I think, one of the best examples is a Grant Morrison comic. Grant Morrison can get such diverse work out of a creator. They are such a tremendous talent in what they evoke from a creator. Now, I don't know that Stan Lee is the same level of showman of medium that Grant Morrison is, but when you historically think about the people that Stan Lee worked with, and I don't know who created what, I'm not here to play the credit game, but when you think about Kirby, Ditko, John Romita, John Romita, who is always like, with love, admiration, and affection, because I've been very positive on John Romita this whole time. John Romita is a company man more than John Romita is a visionary, and there's that like old saying that people really love when Fred Astaire sang their songs because Fred Astaire sang the notes that were on the page verbatim, because Fred Astaire wasn't a singer, but Fred Astaire could carry a fucking tune.
Yes,
You know what I mean? That's kind of John Romita. John Romita Jr. is a really jacked Adele. When John Romita Jr. gets on a book, John Romita Jr. makes the book so beautiful and so unforgettable and so one of a kind. And it's not that his father, John Romita Sr., did any disservice to comics in his beautiful, illustrious career, but he was a bit more of a Fred Astaire singer than a Fred Astaire dancer. And there is something where you kind of lose something a little bit of the tenseness of the Gladiator story the second you get to page 1 of issue 19. Issue 19, same creative team, still a really beautiful issue, but there's something almost cartoony about the exaggerated size of the Daredevil hanging on page 1. There's something almost barren about the backgrounding and fill-in work on the next couple of pages, that 6-panel grid followed by the 5-panel splash set. It really feels like this is less realized than the last issue visually.
This is, I don't want to say the word filler, but it definitely does feel like they didn't know where they really wanted their act break to be, and they realized they had put it too late into the story, and so they had to jam a whole bunch into the first issue while still having a giant splash page for Gladiator, and we never get splash pages this early on. So now they're talking about only 19 pages to set up this whole thing, knock down Gladiator, take him out, and then we get to like figure out
that handsome Foggy.
Yeah.
Sorry, just he's so fucking handsome there.
Yeah, he looks good. He looks good. And you know what he doesn't look like? He doesn't look like Daredevil. He doesn't look like Matt. That's nice. Also, I have a question, Nico. How many times do you call your best friend Dad? Dad.
Okay.
Dad.
Dad.
Dad. Not Daddy.
Dad.
Not Daddy-O.
Not Daddy-O. If he had been like Daddy-O, I would have been
like, sure, the 60s. Woo.
You're a beatnik Daredevil. Yeah.
Right?
But like, no, he I number one, I need to comment that when Kevo had it up on the previous page, it actually says that Stan Lee has no idea what happened last issue because he was on vacation.
He was on vacation because Denny O'Neil stepped in after the first 7 pages. We forgot to note that from the first one.
Which, Denny O'Neil goes on to have an illustrious career at Marvel. Denny O'Neil returns to work on Daredevil extensively for a number of years. Denny also is a line editor on Batman at one point. Super big name at Marvel and DC in the 70s and 80s. And it's so fucking weird to me that he's like, I missed the end of last issue. Boop. And, Kevo pointed out on this page that Foggy's eyes looked kind of, wow. Yeah. Here's the thing. If I came back and found out that that's what was done with my story, I might be kind of like, what the fuck do you mean they randomly just write in the building manager?
Well, so here's the thing. Here's my question. How would you deal with the fact that Karen runs back to the office and Matt's not there?
But that's all in the Denny O'Neil stuff.
I know, but like, how would Stan have handled it? Would he have just magically Matt would have beat her there?
Yeah. Oh wow! And I'm so glad that so glad that I swung a fast way. Like,
I don't know. I don't give it too much shit. I mean, it's not great, but like on the other hand, like if you're going to have her run back to the office and there's not going to be anyone there, you either have Karen freaking the fuck out that now she also doesn't know where Matt is, because in the first couple pages she said, I worry about you when you're not here. Or you have to give her a reason to forget that Matt's not there.
Okay.
I'm a Karen apologist.
Oh, me too. I'm all about that Karen. I'm just not about the dumb stuff they do to her.
So, I love how quickly they put the Gladiator through the justice system. If only so that they can break him out really fucking fast in some kind of like Jack Ruby kind of, Osborne like escape plot.
I don't know why though. Why not just not do this stuff?
Why this guy? Why does Masked Marauder want this guy?
Yeah, it feels so hard to accept that the better way to do it wasn't just have him escape, wasn't just have him get away that night or the next day. Like, one of the things that these 60s stories often suffer from is a need to make the 24 pages all feel like something happens on all 24 pages. And it means we get a lot of holding patterns instead of development. So gets arrested, gets back out, is back to crime.
Yep.
Gets arrested, gets back out, is back to crime. Instead of thinks about, what we ultimately get, thinks about why he commits crime, realizes he's mentally ill, realizes that he needs help. He's really a tragic character. And I think there's a lot of stuff in Daredevil where I'm like, you can't connect those dots. This is one that you can.
Yes. Once we get those pieces later. Right now, he's not that tragic. Personally, if I was him, I would have not gone into tailoring superhero outfits in a city full of superheroes. I would have moved to fucking Iowa and gotten a cornfield like a normal human who hates superheroes and their silly outfits.
I just don't know why why would he do this?
Why? But so like, I don't know why the Masked Marauder needs him. I don't know why the Masked Marauder is secretly Scott Summers with his optic red blasts. Like, I don't understand why Karen doesn't just punch these photographers in the face. Although I had serious flashbacks to our series on Spellbinder over on X's for Podcast with all of these photographers bothering the nice blonde lady.
Well, number one, everybody should go out and read the hell out of that book. It's so good. But my question for you is sort of, why the fucking Masked Marauder even, though? Was it just that this guy visually is so unique?
So I'm going to be honest with you. I forget that there's a difference between the Masked Marauder and the Organizer, because they're sort of the same. And they're basically the same. But Masked Marauder that was from Frog, Cat, and Hawk, right?
No, that's the Organizer.
That's the Organizer. Masked Marauder is 15 Daredevils.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. But like I said, they're basically the same.
Oh, yeah.
They're basically the same.
He might as well be the Fixer in a costume.
Oh, don't get me started on the Fixer in a costume. But like, so like, why was it just like, I mean, first off, there isn't even an editor's note to remind us of who this guy is. So
not at
fascinating.
all.
Fascinating that we talk about.
But he gets cover billing.
He gets cover billing, but he's not on the cover. Neither Marauder nor Gladiator on the cover. It's just organized crime. Guys.
Very the Fixer.
Very the Fixer. Very a bunch of goons who are real boring. But I will say, I do love when Daredevil gets to kick a bunch of like wise guy goons around, because I just think it's really like when he's in his element, just like punch that guy, kick this guy, swing under this guy. He's got a gun. He's shooting that way, and I've like punched him in the throat or something. I don't know. He does a lot.
And that the heart of this issue is Daredevil has to find a way to convince Foggy to come clean without coming clean. It's so fucking funny. Matt is up there being moralistic and you got to do the right thing. Come clean about who you are or Karen's in danger. Rah, 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 rah. He is the king of that. Right. And then he's arresting people. And well, he's not arresting people, but he's part of the trial procedure where, he's getting away with exactly what he's defending people from doing.
If this was 20 years later, we would be treated to another 5 pages of Matt being like, I have given Foggy this speech and I should be listening to it myself. Am I not but doing the same as him? Am I are my own fists make me better? Whatever. I know. Let me go punch stuff.
He punches through his feelings. I eat through my feelings. He punches through his feelings.
I also feel like the top of this page that we've got pulled up right now is kind of like a little womp womp on the plot. Like the ending of this arc, A, a couple of pages early, B, with just sort of like like Foggy looks defeated. Matt is like barely triumphant. The Marauder and the Gladiator give their very best Batman and Robin at the end of the 1960s TV special, like runaway kind of deal. Like, I just feel like they really did have a 3-act piece, and they decided that acts 1 and 2 had to be in the first one.
And they also really over-rely on the fact that you might care about these two people. Now, I project a lot of who Melvin is because I love Melvin Potter.
His name. We don't even know his name.
Exactly.
I actually spent a lot of this. I wanted to type the word Melvin because I was 90% sure that was his name was, and then I just went, I'm not making that mistake on paper for Nico to laugh at.
But I'm with it.
We don't know who he is. We don't get that like scientist on the verge of madness monologue for this guy. We just get, I hate superheroes and their stupid costumes.
And I think what sells that so short is like, and even some of the art toward the end of this issue gets a little bit grotesque, a little Lon Chaney, a little hideous monster. And, also Masked Marauder serving some supreme, Phantom of the Cylons realness right now. But like, it's so weird that they would think that, number one, we care about this partnership. They're not characters that matter to us, and their faces are so obscured. Even if we know what Gladiator looks like, there's no humanity to connect with in these characters. And Daredevil is such a book about humanity. I'm not sure why I'd care.
Yeah. I definitely agree with you that that normally we get foils for Daredevil in our villains, and these are the ones who are the least foil-like for him. So really, is not Foggy the villain of this piece all along?
Yeah. Foggy really, and we see better versions of this later on, like the Guts Nelson story, or, there's some Foggy you haven't gotten to yet, where Foggy also takes some very serious agency in his own life and is a very positive force for change. But this Foggy is kind of a dumb bastard, and he's irresponsible. But what's weird is if Foggy's the villain, then Matt is also the villain, because everything Foggy does is a reflection of Matt.
Now that I'm looking at this panel of the two of them where Daredevil is like looking over at him and Foggy's looking a little strange, it's starting to feel like the panels of Masked Marauder and Gladiator, where Foggy is standing in for Gladiator and Daredevil is Masked Marauder. And I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know if it's not the right parallel, but it definitely evokes that feeling of like the smarter one and the dumber one, the risky one and the organized one. Like it's just it's an interesting thing that I've just noticed, so I can't really give you a full thought about it.
But I'm with it.
Yeah. Like this really, like seeing those two like back to back as Kevo keeps flipping between them really like set it off for me, where I was just like, no, I've seen this like we've seen this dichotomy before in mice even.
Yeah. And it just makes you wonder which one's the Scooby and which one is the Shaggy. You know, which one really has all the devil snacks, as it were.
I mean, in fairness, who is the Scooby and who is the Shaggy in Scooby and Shaggy? Like this is some who is the boss levels of things.
Judith Light was the boss. She signed the paychecks. She could fire Tony.
But would
Angela? Angela could fire Tony.
But could she?
She could. Angela
she?
Could fire Tony.
I think he's the boss if she can't really fire him.
It's okay. Alyssa Milano's going to come in and do a spell on all of them.
Anyway, all of this is to say is that we wrap up this huge arc, and then we have like literal time to actually spend on the romantic trio, which we like again don't normally do. We are getting to the point with these issues where they are balancing out the romance and adventure a little better. Still a little choppily, but the panel versus panel count on each of them is getting closer to where it should be. Where it's like, I think it's best at like 60 adventure, 40 romance, but you know, around there, you live your life. Karen kissing Foggy's cheek is just like, and Matt's like watching and hearing, but it does lead to my favorite Matt moment. This smile, this super sensitive hearing, I love you. Like while he's like clutching his thing and being like, ha, ha, ha. That's my Matt. That's my I'm not Daredevil Matt.
Yeah, that's, you know, it's, and then he's like, personally, I always thought he was really Captain America. Like, he doesn't come in with a dig at Foggy. He doesn't come in with, yeah, this fat schlub. He comes in with, oh, I always thought Foggy was the strongest, most, you know, terrific guy in the world. Like,
and old as fuck.
Well, yeah, but I don't think he comes, you know, it's his dad. I don't think
it is his dad
coming in, you know, mocking him. He's like, oh, I thought it was Captain America, gentle, good-natured ribbing. I know I got the girl. I don't got to worry about the gentle, good-natured ribbing. I got this. Yeah. So you know,
it's
the
fully
ending is
like,
so sweet.
It's so sweet. It's the laugh track. It's the moment of levity that we need to know that like everything's going to be okay. Like there's no hard feelings between any of them. They're all going to put their arms on each other and not look out the window. I don't know what they're looking at.
They're not looking out the window at a giant shadow that, I mean, you really can't convince me that this was the intent. I accept that they're saying it is the shadow of the wing of the owl, but I
think it would be better done if it was.
That's what it is. That's the shadow. It's the owl. He's coming back.
I mean, I know he's coming back, but is that really like what they're trying to do there?
I think it would be... and then look, it's his shadow on the cover right there.
I know, but that shadow is so much more evocative of the owl than this like lumpy camelback.
I think that they kind of realized there was a shadow there and they could use it to say something is coming. I don't think that really, I mean, it could be. We could start the next issue and it could really be it's the owl right outside their window with a spotlight on his back. He has an early ring light, but I don't know. I think this is one of those, the art was there, so we did it.
But see, like the thing is that they do have to know enough to be able to write like a little weird tagline at the end of it, where they're like, "This trio will face the menacing shadow looming larger, the trap." But I guess anyone could lay a trap.
Yeah, they do avoid saying the owl in any way, right? You know, all said and done, I think I'm going to give this arc like a really loving B+.
I was going to say, yeah, like a 3.5, 3.7. out of 5.
Yeah. A really loving B+. The mistakes don't bother me that much.
The mistakes don't bother me that much. It is a lot of character work for Foggy. Karen's never looked better. Never looked better.
Never.
Honestly, that last moment of Matt forgives a lot of wrongs throughout all of here, including calling your best friend Dad. Dad.
I am Daredevil.
Dad. We're going to FlameCon, and I'm gonna show up and just start calling you Dad. Hey, Dad.
Okay. Hey, Dad. I'm gonna start calling you Dad. So, B+, really good time. Really enjoyed this story because what it gave me in Daredevil and Matt, it made up for any shortcoming. If I had anything I'd hoped for, maybe would have been a little bit more clarity on how Masked Marauder is like an ongoing threat in the background for a hot minute, instead of what felt like forgetting he was there at the end.
I would have liked a little more introspection. I think that I'm not one to say like pull everything apart, but if you have a 3-act structure and you feel like you have to shove 2 acts into one issue, just make it 3 issues. You're already a monthly title. You're gonna get it faster than you would have if you'd done 2 back in the day when you were bi-monthly. Like, just do 3 issues. You'd get to spend more time giving like the villain's background story. We could have had a lot more introspection. We could have had a little more back and forth of like Foggy and Karen. We could have had like a mishap at dinner. Or
we could have had a sequence of Gladiator in the sauna.
Like, we could have had actual like Gladiator and Marauder together going up against Matt once their goons are down. Like, we could have had so many more things that I think would have really fleshed this out into something that would have made for like a low A.
Yeah,
because it's
I get
still
that.
Marauder.
Well, we have a very exciting opportunity to come back to the first villain that we really cared about. Owl. We love him. He's a lot of fun. He's such a good stupid time. I love Leland, and I'm really excited to come back. I feel like the book is getting better. It feels like since Khazar, it really feels like everything is getting better. That first 12 issues was really hard, but now that it's monthly, it went monthly with number 10, I think. We've really hit a point where like, I like this book.
I like it a lot. I'm still seeing the seeds of where it's going to come from. And I'm hoping that like the letters start to agree with us a little more in the future.
Yeah. Well, I'm saving a couple for next time because I believe next time we have a single issue story. So that leaves us a little bit more room to talk about, elements and stuff. But until we come back to take a look at another amazing classic Daredevil story, or maybe discuss a recent piece of Daredevil news, a recent Daredevil announcement, or a special Daredevil project or re-release, Tori, where can everybody find you online?
Again, I am Tori. I'm on Twitter at Tori_Sheehan and on Instagram at SMTori. That's Tori with an I. Where can folks find you, Nico?
You guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Nico Action. That's NICOACTION. You can also find our work on KidRiotComics.com, where you can find our amazing creator-owned comic, along with the guy producing this motherfucker, the amazing Kevo. You can also check out my original work in the Young Men in Love anthology, recently released, with incredible comic legends like Joe Glass, Cena Grace, Terry Bloss, and more. You guys can check out the partner show for this series, X is for Podcast, over at xisforpodcast.com, and X is for Podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Okay, I think that's everything I do. And hopefully, if not, I think it'll just have to wait till next time. And until then, I think everybody should stay fearless. We did it!
We did it! We'll get the cadence down sometime.
Yeah, because like right now we're like, stay fearless.
And I'm like, stay fearless.
But we get there.